Man or a woman can be being abusive and they still will have their children given to them.
Shh! The fact that I yell at my kids is a secret. We don't want our viewers to know.
Ruby herself, though, was throughout our marriage, she took a very strict stance when it came to parenting.
Yeah.
And I think she learned a lot of that from her own parents and her own family.
Hi, my name is Ruby Franke. My 4 younger siblings are living in Springville, and my neighbors have been telling me that they have been left home alone for about 4 or 5 days.
Criminal physical stuff happened after Jodi came into the picture, and the severe and the strict consequences and outcomes came after Jodi came into the picture.
Ms. Franke, how do you plead to count 1, child abuse?
Guilty.
To count 3, child abuse?
With my deepest regret and sorrow for my family and my children. Guilty.
Today we continue my reaction to the Ruby Franke documentary that's streaming on Hulu, The Devil in the Family, The Rise and Fall of Ruby Franke. Now my reaction is to episode number 2, which is titled Distortion. Essentially, this episode explains to the viewers how Jodi was able to come into their life and take control of their household, their actions, and quite honestly, their thoughts. Now, this episode begins with negative comments being shown that people had placed on their YouTube channel over these wild disciplinary actions that they were taking with their children.
Eve, this is my tape. What are you doing? What are you doing to this poor baby? Should I tape your eyes to make you sleep?
Eve did not pack a lunch today, and can I bring a lunch over to the school? I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch. I responded and just said, Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, so the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry.
Put them in your pockets so you can take them down to the hamper and drop and give me 10.
1.
Put your hands straight out. They're in. They're not supposed to be out. Shape your hands forward.
They have clips of Ruby saying, kids are getting a taste of the real world and we're not filtering it. So she was advised by their attorney to apologize. Ruby absolutely refused. And she said, we're going to show the world what it's like to make tough decisions because you love your child.
And then I walk out.
If you think it's funny, then that was 7 months ago. Maybe you need longer without a bedroom.
And then they follow up with a clip of Ruby saying, buckle up, guys. I've got something to share.
As far as the things like sleeping on a beanbag, removing Chad from sports teams and things, all of those directives came from Jodi, the licensed mental health counselor. I definitely voiced my opposition and concern, and it was always flipped back onto me of saying, well, this is why your children are disobedient. This is why you're having problems with your children, because you just enable them all the time.
She does disclose that they have no brand deals coming in right now, but they do have just enough to keep going. Next, you see a clip of current day Chad explaining that during that time, Ruby went from being a fun mom to become a more serious religious teacher. They show a clip of Ruby praying and Ruby saying that she is praying more to get through the day. They also show a clip of Jodi talking about choosing truth. And Ruby says in that video that she would choose truth over her children. At this point in episode 2, they start focusing a little more on Jodi and her classes and the opening of Connexions. They bring in a guy named Brandon Patrick, who says that he shadowed Jodi for about a year. He further states that Jodi did not pay him. He says that in his opinion, Jodi is angry towards men, that she preys on the weak, and that he has watched couples get torn apart from her counseling. Brandon says that Connexions was really a church within a church, and Jodi was the prophet, and that she exploited Mormon anxiety. Kevin goes on to describe his first introduction to Jodi. He did say that it felt like a cult and that she felt like a man-hater. And his first workshop with her was a love versus lust. And Ruby had suggested that he join the Connexions men's group, which was support for addiction, pornography, just about anything. She had a class for it. Kevin further explains that Jodi would praise him initially in these classes, and that he did like the way that Ruby was now looking at him because it's the way that he had always wanted her to. They go on to show a clip of Chad and Sherry stating that the shouting in the household stopped and they were now a happy family again. They show comments from their channel stating how happy the family seemed. And Kevin said at that point in time, they became the face of Connexions. And then they introduce a new couple, which is Sherry's teacher/friend. And they show clips of Ruby and Jodi on trips together. And at this point, the 8-passenger channels is tanked. It's done. And so Ruby changed the name of that channel to Moms of Truth and it all transferred to Jodi's business. During this time, just so you understand their mindset, it was around 2021, the end of 2020, when the pandemic was raging across the world and the earthquakes were going on. And Ruby is sharing videos about the end of the world and hell on earth and becoming a prepper. They show video of Ruby stating that Jodi was chosen by God and doing amazing work. God had built up their channel so that it was their job now to share the truth with the world. And Kevin states that at that time, he and Ruby did believe that Jodi was a representative of God and that something big was getting ready to happen. Okay, guys, here's where things start to get a little weird. Ruby and Kevin go to rescue Jodi from her demonic house. Jodi calls Ruby crying, saying that she's being haunted by hooded shadow figures that appear around her bed at night. She says Satan has it out for her. And remember, Ruby and Kevin are expecting something big to happen. This is the end of the world, so they believed her, and they go rescue her. Kevin states that things would happen in Jodi's house that he just could not explain. He goes on to show this picture that's supposed to have some type of demonic long fingers in it at the window. I didn't see anything, but he says he did. So the bishop that had been blessing Jodi's house at this point in time says that he just cannot keep doing this. And Ruby tells Kevin, this is the second coming, and Jodi is chosen by God. So they invited her to move in with them. Ruby then calls Sherry and tells her, you have 2 hours to get your stuff out of your room. Kevin stated that when Jodi was staying with them prior to him being kicked out, that Jodi would go into trances and speak in demonic voices and hit herself in the chest really hard, and that Kevin would place his hands on Jodi's forehead and command those demons to depart. And he said that Ruby would then dismiss him and stay with Jodi. It's at that time that Ruby started checking in on Jodi at nights because that's when this occurred more frequently. And then she just decided, hey, I should sleep in the same room with her. We're at Christmas 2021, and Sherry has came home for the holidays. She has to sleep with one of the other kids because Jodi is in her room. And they show a video of Ruby explaining that this year, the 2 younger kids will not be visited by Santa. That instead, her and Kevin are going to give them the gift of truth. Now, while Sherry is home for this visit, she does go into her bedroom. And she says that she notices candles and massage oils, and it just appeared to be really dark in there. The director asks her if she believes that Ruby and Jodi were lovers. And she says she doesn't know. And then Kevin also says he doesn't know how far it went, but it was definitely more than friendship, more than sisterhood, and it was uncomfortably intimate. This is when they start explaining how Jodi isolated Kevin and Chad from the family. Chad had confessed to Jodi that while she was living there, he had been making out with girls. Jodi went immediately and told Ruby, and Ruby blamed Chad's actions as the reason that Jodi was possessed and had these demonic attacks. Ruby told Chad, I think it's time for you to leave the home. And Ruby filmed Chad packing. Chad was only 17 years old when she kicked him out. He said at the time it made sense to him, but now looking back, he understands that it was the perfect opportunity to kick both him and Kevin out of the home. Ruby shown telling Kevin, hey, I'm trying to do God's work and you're holding me and Jodi back. That's when she asked Kevin to also leave the home. And while Kevin is speaking to each of the kids that he's leaving to work on himself so that he can be a better father and a better husband, Ruby's taking pictures of all of this.
It's required to move out of the house and never contact my siblings, never go back home. So it's funny because a couple people did reach out. A neighbor saw me riding my bike to school and to work, and she felt so bad because she realized I was a minor. I was 17, out living on my own, and so she offered to buy me a car, and I really wanted to take that up, but Jodi, who's my therapist and I trusted and loved, at that point, she wanted me to live a very physical, straining and mental straining life while I was out there. That was her mindset when it came to repentance and changing, is put yourself through as much pain as possible.
At this point, Ruby has kicked out her 17-year-old son, Chad, and her husband, Kevin. And Kevin now calls Sherry to let her know she is not allowed to come home either, and inform her that both he and Chad have been asked to leave the home. He asked her not to contact Chad or him or have any communication with the family whatsoever. They then show a clip of Ruby calling Sherry to let her know that her insurance on the car has been canceled and that her medical insurance will be canceled as well. And although Ruby has asked Sherry not to come home, as well as Kevin has asked Sherry not to come back home, Sherry does come back for a visit, and they show a clip of her standing at the doorway with her friend / teacher, and Ruby comes out to the door and will not let her in. Sherry says at this point in time, Ruby had come to see evil in everyone around her.
The rules, the boundaries of the separation were completely defined by my former wife, Ruby, and by Jodi. What made it difficult was, they could cross the boundary anytime they wanted to, and that was okay. That was, quote unquote, in truth. But if I were to seek, even attempt to cross that boundary, that was an evidence that I was being selfish, that I was unsafe, and that likely my marriage would have ended.